Well, good morning, everyone. I could just say what Jason said, but I probably should add some things. So it's great to see everyone. Thanks for your continued leadership and commitment to our union. As I've said before, the work we do together really matters, and it shows every day in the strength of ALPA and the progress we're making on behalf of more than 80,000 members and 43 pilot groups. Since our last meeting in May, ALPA has continued to work across all 4 pillars of the air safety organization: safety, security, pilot assistance, and jump seat. And I'll touch on recent training outreach and the ongoing work through ALPA PAC. But before I delve into those topics, I think it's very important that I address the ongoing government shutdown, as Jason talked about, which carries real implications for operational safety and security. Although key aviation safety and security personnel, our air traffic controllers and TSA officers, are classified as essential and are required to continue working without pay, this increases their financial stress, inadequate staffing, and the need to supplement with another source of income, and that raises risks of fatigue and increased sick calls. The longer the lapse in funding endures, the more strain there is on the system. So let's hope this shutdown ends very soon. ALPA's 69th Annual Air Safety Forum in Chicago in early September brought together pilots, regulators, industry leaders, and labor allies to advance the future of aviation safety, security, pilot assistance, and jump seat. Over the week we spent together, we shared lessons learned, strengthened our collaboration, and reinforced the critical role ALPA plays as the global voice of airline pilots. Thank you to the hundreds of volunteers and our staff who made this year's Air Safety Forum such a success. Year after year, it's an impressive event and a tribute to why ALPA was founded. Over the past several months, ALPA has been actively engaged in a number of significant safety events involving ALPA pilot groups. On September 7th, WestJet Flight 2276, a 737-800 arriving in St. Martin, had the right main gear collapse during landing. All 164 people on board were evacuated, and no serious injuries were reported. ALPA deployed 2 investigators along with representatives from our Accident Investigation Board and the Critical Incident Response Program to support the WestJet pilot group. On September 25th, Commute Air Flight 4439 and Embraer ERJ 145 experienced a runway overrun after landing on runway 34 in Roanoke. The aircraft came to a stop in the engineered material arrestor system, the EMAS, just beyond the end of the runway. There were no injuries, and ALPA is a party to that investigation as well. And on October 1st, 2 Endeavor CRJ 900s, Flight 5155 and Flight 5047, were involved in a ground collision while taxiing at LaGuardia. 1 flight attendant sustained a minor knee injury and was taken to the hospital. No passengers were injured. ALPA has been granted party status by the NTSB and dispatched a team to support the NTSB investigation. In each case, ALPA brought technical expertise to the investigation and ensured that the crews involved received access to chirp support and other resources. ALPA's also played a role in a number of other ongoing NTSB and TSB investigations. In late July, ALPA was a party to the 30-hour NTSB investigative hearing, which was focused on the January 29th midair of PSA 5342 in the Army Black Hawk helicopter on approach to DCA. ALPA recently provided its formal submission to the board with analysis and recommendations. And I can tell you that I've heard directly from the families how impressed they have been with our team. So kudos to our people who that we've trained and are doing an outstanding job. And they're young people. We continue to support the TSB investigation through the NTSB on the February 17th Endeavor Flight 4819 accident in Toronto that overturned on the runway. All 80 passengers and crew on board survived. The NTSB recently closed the investigation into the October 4th, 2023 emergency gear-up landing of FedEx Flight 1376, a 757-200 in Chattanooga. The crew experienced a landing gear malfunction with multiple failures shortly after departure. After declaring an emergency, the crew returned to the airport, and after exhausting alternate gear extension procedures, it executed a gear-up landing. All 3 crew members on board exited the aircraft without injury. ALPA recently recognized the members of that flight crew with the Superior Aviating Award at ALPA's annual Air Safety Forum in Chicago. And it's at the NTSB's board meeting on June 24th, the agency adopted its final investigative report on the January 5th, 2024 in-flight separation of Alaska's Flight 1282 left mid-exit door plug. Notably, the report said that the teamwork and the complementary duties of the flight crew during the emergency reinforced the necessity for a minimum flight crew of 2 pilots. This finding supports ALPA's Safety Starts with 2 initiative, which opposes any attempt to reduce the required number of pilots on the flight deck. That campaign remains front and center in our defense of multi-pilot flight decks. In early 2025, EASA, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, announced that it would refocus its rulemaking on advanced flight deck technologies, but they didn't slam the door shut on approving single-pilot operations on commercial airline aircraft. So we'll have to keep that fight up. But a recent EASA-commissioned report concluded that current technology cannot yet match the safety baseline established by 2-pilot operations. This reinforces ALPA's long-standing position that innovation must be tethered to safety, not driven by cost pressure. 2 pilots on the flight deck at all times is non-negotiable. In May, ALPA endorsed DOT Secretary Sean Duffy's proposal for a new air traffic control system. ALPA also supported legislation that became law in July and provides the FAA with funding of $12.5 billion, a dedicated down payment for the critical upgrades. The modernization effort is vital for improving safety, resilience, and capacity in the national airspace system. Recent disruptions at Newark underscore the urgency of modernization. Flight delays have been compounded by staffing shortages, outdated communications infrastructure, and ongoing runway construction. ALPA continues to press for both adequate staffing and additional funding for the needed investments. The FAA's recent notice of proposed rulemaking on beyond visual line of sight unmanned aircraft operations raises serious safety and security concerns. ALPA has submitted comments emphasizing that safety must remain the top priority and that integration into the national airspace system cannot outpace risk mitigation. At that same time, commercial space launches continue to affect our members' operations and risk safety. We're working with regulators and industry stakeholders to increase information available to pilots and to better coordinate transparency and hazard management. Security also remains a core focus of the ASO, and there is quite a bit that has happened on that front. In July, the FAA announced a 1-year delay in implementing mandatory flight deck secondary barriers, pushing the compliance date back to July 31st of 26. The original date of compliance as required by the FAA final rule was August of 25. We strongly objected to delays in equipping aircraft with secondary barriers, which remain a critical defense against flight deck intrusion, and we continue to push for its implementation. The incidence of GPS jamming and spoofing is still very high, especially in the vicinity of conflict zones and areas of geopolitical tension. This threat to navigation and safety is a major concern for pilots who operate in those areas. ALPA continues to call for more aggressive international action to detect, report, and mitigate these threats. We continue to engage with TSA on the RAPBAC program to ensure that it is applied fairly and appropriately to flight crews. The RAPBAC system, which continuously monitors criminal history databases and notifies authorities when there you go, it's good for security, right? And enrolled individuals arrested or charged has raised important questions of how the information is used. ALPA continues to advocate for clear standards that protect pilots' rights, including only using wrap-back notification to evaluate against the TSA disqualifying offenses. ALPA remains a strong advocate for the Federal Flight Deck Officer Program. The program continues to demonstrate value as a critical layer for aviation security, with more than 23 million missions flown since its inception. As the last line of defense on the flight deck, ALPA continues to press for sustained and increased federal funding to ensure that FFDO volunteers receive the resources, training, and support they need to carry out their mission safely and effectively. The TSA's transition from known crew member, or KCM, to the new Crew Member Access Point, or CMAP, continues to move forward, though the rollout schedule has shifted into the future, and we would expect that shift to further extend with the government shutdown. ALPA continues to work closely with the TSA to ensure that this transition protects crew privacy, minimizes delays, and maintains the same level of trusted access that KCM has provided for more than a decade. It'd be nice to get a random rate down, but we have to stop bringing guns through security. Our advocacy priorities include ensuring data protection and maintaining operational efficiency across all participating airports. Pilot wellness and peer support remain top priorities among our pilot assistance volunteers. The Mental Health and Aviation Medical Clearances Aviation Rulemaking Committee issued 24 recommendations, and the Section 411 and 413 working groups created under the 2024 FAA reauthorization are moving the recommendations forward. And ALPA is fully engaged in this process. ALPA also continues to support the Mental Health and Aviation Act, H.R. 2591, the bipartisan legislation that would improve the medical review process and make it safer for pilots to seek help. Captain Travis Ludwig will provide an update this week. And outreach to promote ALPA's Are You in the Green initiative continues to expand, helping pilots evaluate readiness before each flight and connecting them with resources when needed. ASO jump seat volunteers are working hard to increase jump seat access to ALPA members. Our volunteers continue to reinforce the importance of professional courtesy and access to the jump seat through ALPA's Make the Walk campaign. And the Flight Finder tool has become one of the most used tools in the ALPA app, helping pilots to find quick and reliable access to available jump seat opportunities. As of Monday, there have been more than 10.7 million Flight Finder queries since the tool was first introduced in 2021. And what's so great about that jump seat app is it brings pilots' attention to the app, and then they say, oh, there's other buttons, including hit the hotline, and it will call the hotline. There's some amazing tools in that app. ALPA also continues to advocate for international jump seat access and reciprocity, working with international partners to expand jump seat agreements where possible. In Canada, reciprocal access is growing through cooperation between ALPA's Canadian pilot groups and their U.S. counterparts. The association is also encouraging other foreign pilot unions to develop similar systems and continues to push for international jump seating standards. ALPA training remains at the core of building ALPA's safety culture, and you see the results of that training when we have an accident. Since May 1, we have provided training for 187 pilot volunteers, and that's just since May 1. Recent ASO offerings include ALPA's Pilot Peer Support Symposium, Peer Support Initial and Recurrent Training, Accident Investigation Course and Advanced Accident Investigation Course, Foundational ALPA Service Training, and Leadership and Advanced Safety Training. These programs prepare volunteers to support their peers, lead investigations, and strengthen ALPA's role as a safety leader. In my role as ALPA PAC Treasurer, I'm pleased to report that our collective advocacy strength continues to grow. Next month, ALPA PAC turns 50 years old. Our predecessors in 1975 had great foresight. And I struggle to think of the people in this room that were not here in 1975 because they weren't born yet, but I digress. As of this month, ALPA PAC participation across the union stands at 26%, a 1-point increase since our last meeting. We've raised $2,195,544 this cycle and spent $1,866,838 in support of pilot partisan pro-safety candidates on both sides of the aisle. Our contributions remain balanced and strategic, 54% directed to Democrats and 46% to Republicans, reflecting ALPA's commitment to advancing aviation safety and labor priorities regardless of party affiliation. It wouldn't be right for me not to comment on how behind we were, as Jason talked about, in participation in dollars compared to our target, NATCA. Our 26% participation pales against NATCA's 2/3 participation. Last year, NATCA raised $8.2 million with 16,000 eligible members. We raised $5.6 million with 64,000 eligible members. The reason it's 64 is because our Canadian brothers and sisters don't need this kind of system. NATCA raises 46% more per election cycle with significantly fewer members making quite a bit less money. So we have work to do. Please press how critical ALPA PAC is every chance you get at the MEC level and encourage your LECs as well. Pilots listen to their LEC representatives as all politics are local. The good news, however, is that since the creation of the Banky 1931 Club in June of 2023, that donor club has exceeded expectations of the steering committee. Currently, there are more than 305 members that are part of the Banky 1931 Club, contributing annually more than $1,931 a year. Their leadership has helped expand the PAC's capacity to engage lawmakers and strengthen our influence on Capitol Hill. And some of these members have been doing even more by contributing the maximum donation allowed by law. I'd like to recognize those contributors, some of whom are in the room today. From Alaska, Captains Bradley Beecher and Drew Coyle. From Delta, Captains Jason Ambrosi, Justin Berg, Ryan Bresnow, Gareth Carter, Reed Donahue, Emilio Marcus, Jeremy Oldham, and First Officers Brendan Cantwell and Matthew Colin, and Andrew McIntyre. From Piedmont, Captain Davis Bunting. And from United, Captains Gary Connell, Travis Ludwig, Andrew Minarsik, Brian Noyes, Chris Sedor, Doug Willey, and First Officer Nathan Racine, and I do the same. And notably, when Ray Burton took a job at American, he told Adam Mellis in ALPA's Government Affairs Department that he hopes to come back as a max contributor someday, and I personally look forward to that. Thank you all for supporting ALPA's legislative and political priorities through your max contributions to ALPA PAC. You embody what it means to be an ALPA leader and pilot partisan. Over the past several months, ALPA has hosted 19 events featuring at least one member of Congress, and more than 40 individual members have visited our offices to meet directly with ALPA's government affairs team. These interactions reinforce ALPA's position as the leading voice for airline pilots and ensure that policymakers understand the real-world implications of their decisions on flight safety, security, and labor rights. And they love hearing from us. Looking ahead, we are 1 year away from the next election cycle, which will again shape the composition of Congress. Since the 2024 election, 35 members of Congress have left office, announced retirements, launched campaigns for other offices, or passed away. That number includes one of our strongest allies, Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska, a steadfast supporter of airline pilots. Our team is already evaluating potential successors and is optimistic about maintaining and even expanding our network of congressional champions. During this executive board meeting, we will also present the John J. O'Donnell Trophy for Excellence in Political Action. This award recognizes outstanding engagement and innovation in advancing ALPA's legislative and political goals. One of ALPA's greatest strengths is our ability to share best practices among pilot groups. I encourage each of you to have your government affairs chairs connect with this year's recipient to learn what strategies they have used which have been successful in building participation and increasing political engagement. And healthy competition is always good, and of course pilots are never competitive. ALPA also continues to raise our profile in the aviation community and beyond through outreach opportunities. Earlier this year, Jason and I, along with other ALPA members, represented ALPA at the Women in Aviation Conference in an effort to continue building partnerships and supporting diversity in the industry. And in July, Jason and I attended EAA Air Venture 2025, along with a number of volunteers from ALPA's Professional Development Group. More than 700,000 people attended the week-long fly-in convention. ALPA once again had a strong presence in Oshkosh, engaging directly with ALPA members, other aviation professionals, and the public. In closing, I want to again thank our pilot volunteers, staff, and ALPA leaders across all 4 ASO pillars, our colleagues in government affairs, and everyone out there doing outreach on behalf of ALPA. The strength of this union lies in the people, our communications department, and we are fortunate to have outstanding people supporting our ongoing mission to improve safety, security, and advocate for our members. We continue to face complex challenges within our industry and our profession, but safety and security will always be ALPA's highest priority as we were founded. Thanks to your dedication and engagement, ALPA is not just meeting these challenges, but we're shaping the future of aviation. Your leadership and your commitment to our union make all that possible, so thank you.